Theology, at first glance, is the study of the things related to God, the work of understanding and articulating, as far as is possible, the mysteries of God, His creation, and how God and creation relate to each other. Simply put, that's what theology is, namely everything that can be said about God, His creation, and the way the two relate. This is the understanding that most Christian traditions would give to the term theology. And ultimately, etymologically, this is what the term theologia means. Theology, theologia, coming from two Greek words, theos and logos, meaning the study of God. But what I want to do now is to emphasize the fact that theology is not simply the study of God, not even simply speaking about God, but something quite different. And before we continue in this course, and before we begin to give a few definitions of what theology is, I'd like to say that essentially theology is an experience. It's this existential aspect that theology is. And I'd like to share a story with you from the Bible which really brings this to the fore. You all remember the scene in the New Testament Gospels regarding Peter walking on water. Now, this scene beautifully depicts, I believe, what theology is, namely a communal event. You remember the scene described in the Bible when all the disciples were gathered together on the boat one night in the Lake of Galilee, and a great storm arose, and they were in danger of drowning. And despairing, the disciples saw in the distance a shadow-like figure walking towards the boat, and they became afraid, thinking that it was a ghost. And the ghost then speaks to them and says, "Don't be afraid, it is I, it is Christ." And Peter says to him, "If it is you, order me to come to you on the water." And Christ responds, "Come, elthe." And Peter begins to walk on water. Now, at that moment, Peter truly exists. He is a real and genuine person. He is neither a ghost, nor does he have a false feeling, but he is a Peter who exists not as a result of his nature, but as a result of that come. He exists only in his relationship with Christ. He exists because he responds to Christ's call, come. Now, this story shows us two things about theology. Firstly, it tells us that theology is a response to Jesus. Theology is basically a response to the come of Jesus. And secondly, it shows us that theology is an existential event, a communal event, and not simply an acceptance of some laws. Theology ultimately is not simply an accumulation of knowledge of divine things divorced from the living experience, divorced from living a life according to that knowledge. And so from this story, you could say that theology is a gift to approach God in order to experience Him. And in this communion with God, in this distinct approach to theology, we see in the story that all the laws of our biological nature are abolished. Certainly this doesn't happen magically or automatically. At the next moment, a great wave comes. Peter loses his cool and goes to sink. And this is what theology is, a relationship with Christ, where the laws of nature of this world can be abolished, where death can be overcome by death, as we sing in church. And so such an understanding of theology signifies that it is ultimately mystagogical, being taken by the hand and initiated into the mysteries of God, where you get to taste the victory over death. So theology is an encounter, a relationship, an experience.